This baby was too small to lift the basket. But what he did next made his sister cry. They had no father. No money. Just a single mother watching from far away. When the fruit fell from his tiny hands, everyone thought he would cry. But instead, he smiled. And changed everything. Don't blink. Because the ending will break your heart. And heal it at the same time. Every morning, the sun rose gently over a small fruit garden behind a quiet house in the countryside. For many people, it was just another day. But for Emily, a single mother, it was a daily reminder of hope. Emily had 2 children. Liam, just 2 years old, with tiny hands and innocent eyes. And Sophie, his 7-year-old sister, who had learned to grow up too fast. Their father had left years ago. Life wasn't easy. Money was tight, and every fruit they picked helped put food on the table. One morning, Sophie walked into the garden with an old basket. She reached for the apples carefully, standing on her toes. Suddenly, little Liam followed her. His steps were unsteady, but his heart was strong. He picked up the basket. It was heavy for him. Too heavy. Emily watched from a distance, ready to help. But she stopped. Liam struggled. Then smiled. He walked toward Sophie, holding the basket with both hands. His tiny face showed effort, but also pride. Sophie turned around and froze. Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, baby brother," she whispered. Liam didn't understand the words. But he understood love. He handed her the basket. An apple fell to the ground. Instead of crying, Liam laughed. That moment broke Emily's heart. And healed it at the same time. She realized something powerful. Even in a broken family, love can still grow. Even in hardship, children can teach adults the meaning of strength. That day, they didn't just pick fruits. They picked hope. And in that small garden, a single mother knew. She was never alone. Emily wiped her eyes quickly, not wanting the children to see her tears. Sophie bent down and picked up the apple that had fallen. She wiped it on her shirt and handed it to Liam. "For you," she said softly. Liam looked at the apple, then at his sister, and shook his head. He pushed it back toward her with his tiny fingers. Sophie smiled through her tears. "You're helping me again," she whispered. They kept working together. Sophie picked the fruits, and Liam proudly carried them, one slow step at a time. Sometimes he stumbled. Sometimes he almost fell. But every time, Sophie held his hand. Emily followed them quietly through the garden. She remembered the nights she cried alone, wondering if she was enough. Wondering if her children felt the pain she tried so hard to hide. But watching them now, she understood something she had forgotten. Her children were growing up with kindness, not anger. With love, not fear. The basket slowly filled with apples and strawberries. The sun climbed higher, warming their faces. Liam suddenly stopped walking. He looked tired. Sophie noticed immediately. She put the basket down and hugged him. "It's okay," she said. "We can rest." Liam rested his head on her shoulder. Emily's heart trembled. In that moment, Emily realized her daughter was not just a child. She was becoming a protector. And her son, so small and fragile, was already learning to care for others. After a while, they sat under the tree together. Emily joined them and pulled both children close. "This is enough for today," she said gently. Liam clapped his hands. Sophie laughed. They walked back home together, tired but happy. That evening, Emily washed the fruits while the children sat at the table. Liam tried to count the apples. Sophie helped him, patiently correcting his numbers. Dinner was simple. But it was full of warmth. As the night grew quiet, Emily tucked her children into bed. Liam fell asleep holding Sophie's finger. Sophie stayed awake a little longer, watching him. Mom, she asked softly, will everything be okay? Emily kissed her forehead. Yes, she said. As long as we have each other. The light went off. The house was silent. But in that silence lived something strong. Emily stayed beside the bed for a moment longer, listening to their soft breathing. The day had been long, but her heart felt full. Later that night, when the house was quiet, Emily sat at the small kitchen table. Bills were spread in front of her. Numbers that never seemed to add up. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she remembered Liam's smile. The way Sophie held his hand. The way they worked together without being asked. The next morning came early. Sophie woke up first and quietly got dressed. She didn't want to wake her brother. But Liam, as always, was already watching her. Garden? He asked in his broken little voice. Sophie smiled. Yes, garden. They went outside again, the air fresh and cool. Today, Liam didn't just carry the basket. He tried to pick a fruit himself. He stretched his tiny arm as high as he could. He couldn't reach. Sophie moved closer, gently lifting him. Careful, she said. His fingers wrapped around a small apple. It came loose. Liam gasped in surprise, then laughed loudly. He had done it. Emily, standing at the doorway, felt her chest tighten. That apple wasn't just fruit. It was proof. Proof that even the smallest victories mattered. Days passed. The garden slowly emptied. The children kept helping. Sometimes neighbors stopped to watch. Sometimes they offered a smile or a kind word. One afternoon, a woman from down the road asked Emily. Your kids are always so happy. How do you do it alone? Emily looked at her children. At Sophie teaching Liam how to place fruits carefully. At Liam copying every move his sister made. I'm not alone, Emily replied quietly. One evening, Sophie came to her mother holding a coin jar. I saved this, she said. For you. Emily knelt down and hugged her tightly. You're already giving me more than money, she whispered. That night, a gentle rain fell. The garden drank it in. Liam pressed his face against the window. Fruit's happy, he said. Emily laughed softly. Yes, she said. They are. Weeks later, the last basket was filled. It wasn't much, but it was honest work. Emily sold some fruits at the local market. With the money, she bought bread, milk, and a small toy car for Liam. When she handed it to him, he looked confused. Then he pushed it toward Sophie. For sis, he said. Sophie shook her head. No, it's yours. Liam thought for a moment. Then placed it between them. Emily watched from across the room, tears in her eyes. In that small house, with simple dreams and tired hearts, love continued to grow. And every time Emily felt afraid of the future, she remembered one thing. If her children could share so naturally, if they could care so deeply, then no matter how hard life became, they would always find a way. The seasons slowly began to change. Leaves turned golden, and the air grew cooler. The garden rested, but the lessons it had taught stayed alive inside the little house. Sophie started school again. Every morning, she packed her small bag carefully. Before leaving, she always bent down to Liam. Be good, she said. Liam nodded seriously, as if he understood the responsibility. Emily found small jobs wherever she could. Cleaning, helping neighbors, selling handmade fruit jam. It was tiring, but she never complained in front of the children. One afternoon, Sophie came home quieter than usual. Emily noticed immediately. What happened? She asked gently. Sophie hesitated. Then she said, some kids said, we are poor. Emily's heart sank. She knelt down in front of her daughter. And what did you say? Emily asked. Sophie looked up. I said, we are rich in love. Emily hugged her tightly, holding back tears. That evening, Liam brought Sophie his favorite toy. No one asked him to. He just felt she needed it. Sophie smiled again. Winter came softly. The house was small, but warm. They cooked together, laughed together, struggled together. On cold nights, Emily told stories. Stories about strong families. Stories about hope. Liam would fall asleep halfway through. Sophie listened until the end. One night, Sophie asked, "Mom, when I grow up, can I help people like you do?" Emily smiled. "You already do," she said. Time moved on. Liam learned to speak clearly. His first full sentence made Emily freeze. "I help, sister." Sophie clapped with joy. Spring returned. The garden bloomed again. Standing there, watching her children, Emily realized something deep. Life had never been perfect. But it had been meaningful. The pain had shaped them. The struggle had taught them compassion. As Sophie picked fruits once more, Liam stood beside her, taller now, stronger. Emily didn't stop them this time. She knew. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were growing. And in that small garden, year after year, love continued its quiet work. Rooted deep, unbreakable, and real. Years passed quietly, the way meaningful time often does. Sophie grew taller, her hands stronger, her eyes wiser. Liam followed her everywhere, copying her steps, her words, her kindness. The garden became their classroom. Sophie taught Liam how to tell ripe fruit from unripe. Liam taught Sophie how to laugh at small mistakes. Emily watched them from the porch, her hair now touched with silver. Life was still not easy. But it was steady. One summer afternoon, a storm came suddenly. Strong wind. Heavy rain. The children ran to the garden without thinking. "Fruits!" Liam shouted. Sophie grabbed his hand. "We have to save them." Emily wanted to stop them, but she saw something in their faces. Responsibility. Love. Together, they covered the plants, picked what they could, and protected the rest. They came back soaked, muddy, laughing. That night, the power went out. The house was dark. Sophie lit a candle. Liam sat close to her. Emily realized then that her children were no longer afraid of darkness. They had learned how to be light for each other. Years later, Sophie stood in the same garden, ready to leave for college. A small scholarship letter trembled in her hands. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said to Emily. Then she turned to Liam. "Or without you." Liam, now taller than she remembered, smiled proudly. "You taught me," he said. On Sophie's last morning at home, Liam placed an apple in her bag. The first fruit they ever picked together. "For luck," he said. Emily watched as her daughter walked down the road, her future waiting. She felt fear. But also pride. That evening, Liam helped Emily in the garden. Just the two of them. "Mom," he asked, "will Sophie be okay?" Emily smiled softly. "Yes," she said. "Because she knows how to love." The sun set slowly over the trees. And in that same small garden where everything began. Where a baby once struggled to lift a basket. Where a sister once learned strength. Where a mother once doubted herself. Life continued. Emily stood still for a moment, listening to the evening sounds of the garden. The wind moved gently through the trees. The same trees that had seen their struggles. The same trees that had watched them grow. Liam placed the last apple into the basket and looked up at his mother. "Done," he said. Emily smiled and pulled him into her arms. In that moment, she understood everything. Life had tested them. Life had bent them. But it never broke them. The garden was never just a place to grow fruits. It was a place where love was planted. Where patience was learned. Where hope took root. Emily closed her eyes and whispered a quiet thank you. For her children. For their kindness. For the strength they found in each other. As the sun disappeared behind the trees, they walked back home together. Not rich in money, but rich in something far greater. Love.